in the podcast, I'm gonna have to say that.
Yeah, and let's just say it now, so that as I'm editing, I don't forget that we're gonna call the episode "I Have My Plan Rot," aka how to make difficult decisions.
That's right.
All right, let's hit it. This is. I mean, we're already live. This is on the video, but
let's just keep going.
Let's just keep on. All right. And we're back with the Business Not As Usual podcast. I am Vince.
And I am Mike.
And you are Mike.
I am.
And we are your hosts for the Business Not As Usual podcast. What's going on, Mike?
I was thinking, Vince, about prioritization, which sounds kind of boring, but yeah, in light of when you're in a transformational program, people have ideas because you have your smartest, your brightest, your most entrepreneurial type people in there.
Hopefully, yes.
And new ideas pop up because maybe even it's a long program, so in 3 years. But what happens with those ideas? Do you take them on? Do you say, no, I have my plan, rot. We're not taking on new ideas. And if you do, how do you prioritize those?
Yeah.
Because we've heard many times, the shiny object is the thing that detracts you from your ultimate goal.
Right.
That's been on my mind.
Yeah. So it's so not even so much about prioritization, as you said, but about how do you make the difficult decisions that need to be made as part of this work? So as a new idea comes in, how do you make that decision of, should this be part of this work? Should we park it and do it later? Should we expand the scope? Should we contract the budget? How do you make those difficult decisions? That's what's been noodling around in that cranium there.
I've been noodling it because it happens. Okay. Right? It doesn't matter how good your plan is, and it's a range from. I was at my cousin's house, and their company does artificial intelligence. We should add that to the project.
We should totally add that.
We should totally do, because you know what they did? They cut their time to market by 30% because they have AI with no right. So
without the context, yes.
Or I read a white paper, and we should have a virtual agent. So we should do that. And so how do you? So I guess, do you have a hard line and say, eye on the prize, this is our project. We're not going to think of taking on new things. Or do you leave some room in the project to actually do that if you're transforming and it's a longer road to like completion or semi?
Yeah. So for me, I'll just sort of dive in on this one. It really depends on your approach. It depends on a number of different factors. So if you are, going through a waterfall type approach and you are doing all of your requirements up front, you're building all of your processes, then you're going and doing all of your development, and then you're going and deploy. Like, if you're doing that, then then your comment earlier, I've got my plan rot, is which by the way should 100% be the title of this episode.
100%.
is like, yeah, it's I've got my plan rot. Like, we'll do that in the future. It's nice that you want to do that. We'll do it in the future. It's not part of the plan. Versus if you're going through and you're delivering and executing in a more iterative way, then it becomes possible to build that into your roadmap and into your backlog as just a feature or a service or a function, like something to be worked on as it then comes up in the priority. So I mean, it depends on the choice of road you've decided to go down. But then I think there's a bigger there's another discussion there, which is, how do you even know that thing is worth doing? Like,
right.
great.
Is it?
Right. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead, please.
Should we take on AI? Like
Yeah.
what is it going to be measured against to take it on? Because I'm assuming even in an agile delivery,
Mm-hmm.
you have the things that you want to do based
Yeah.
upon the goals, the objectives, the benefit realization, targets. So
Mm-hmm.
now this new thing, does it overtake one of the things that you've said your program's going to deliver?
Yeah.
And how do you make that determination?
And I think the first thing you need to ask is, does this align to the original objectives of this transformation? Does this
Right.
help us, or does this
Mhm.
take us down a different path? If it helps us, okay, good. If it takes us down a different path, then you need to sort of retroactively look at, okay, well, were we on the right path? And this is now the new right path. Because I don't want to start, what's that? Don't go chasing waterfalls, Mike. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Do not
don't go
chase
after
those waterfalls.
No. And no scrubs. No scrubs on our transformations. By the way, underrated part of the movie The Other Guys was the Michael Keaton character who I don't know if you've ever seen the Other Guys. Classic Will Ferrell, Mark Wahlberg.
I have. I'm trying to remember the Michael Keaton part.
Michael Keaton is the chief of police, and he keeps using lines from TLC, and they're like, "Come on, you know what you're doing." And he's like, "No, I don't. I've never heard of these songs. No scrubs, guys. Hey, do your investigation, but don't go chasing waterfalls." They're like, "Come on, you gotta know what you're doing here."
Yes.
So anyways, like, don't go after that. Don't pursue the shiny thing because it's shiny, I guess is where
Right.
I wanted to go with this. But if it's going to take you down a road that is more advantageous from a strategic perspective, then there's no harm in looking into it and doing some level of detailed analysis to understand more. What you don't want to get into is the constant, like, chasing your tail of questioning what is the strategic value of the work that we're doing. And this is where it's so important that you articulate that vision and that North Star up front, but also continually to review it and ensure that it's still the direction that you want to go.
I know people are probably like, you need guiding principles. If you have guiding principles, then you will know which. Sometimes though, those guiding principles are so broad, and you have you have someone who's smart enough, they can make sure that idea hits those guiding principles.
Yeah.
They may be tricksters, but they may be able to do that. And I don't know if that always, like, there probably needs other things to align to.
For sure.
What I caution though is that analysis needs people power. You need someone to do it. And if your plan is so rigid with no buffer
that was
in
scary.
It.
We both said rigid.
Owe me a beer.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke. Because we're a family show.
Then you won't have the people to do the analysis. Because you have them so tied to your plan and your direction that they won't be able to do it. So then they still take it on, like the ever popular off the side of their desk.
Yes, which is asking for trouble,
worrying me.
Right. Yeah, yes. You can't expect. Years ago, Mike, I still do teach Lean Six Sigma at the various belt levels. And, I found that companies were interested in that work and leading, continuous improvement projects as long as it didn't interfere with their day job. And so I was like,
interfere with the real work.
Yeah, with the quote real work. So they, I had people that would like work their 8-hour day or 10-hour day, whatever, and then work on the project. And it's like, this is asking for failure, because you are erecting too many barriers to success to actually be successful. Like, you're making it hard to win, and you're
Yes.
stabbing right. You cannot expect that people are going to work on these things as pet projects off the side of your desk, or in the side pocket or whatever. Like, you can't, because
it's not a side hustle.
It's not a side hustle, right? So yes, you need to have that investment up front, and that's a difficult sell, because you need to have those people at the ready, even if they're not always working on doing that analysis. But you need to have them so that they're not like, okay, I've got these other 10 things that I'm doing, and I need to do a deep dive on AI. Like, how do you do that and still provide value? Instead, you're just doing everything half-assed.
Right. And
right.
And we do it, like transformational programs do that. And what I find is they'll take on the extra work, and then, or they'll start adding things to the project. And what happens? The money starts to go up, the timelines start to drift. And then there has to be, at some point, an analysis, and then everyone by shock is like, why are we so off course? Now we got to completely reprioritize, or we have to look at we're gonna have to go back and look at what we're doing, because it wasn't in the intent of the program.
Right.
And that's what, like, how we started this. It's like, it happens because people, I guess, get bored. But how do you keep that nimbleness while staying rigid, which I know are two things that are pulling at opposite ends.
Right. But you like, again, if the thing, so let's continue the example of AI, because I think that's something that's easily relatable. Right. So I want to leverage AI to achieve some strategic outcome. Okay. Let's assume it gets you, it aligns to your objectives, and that's the way that you want to go. You're not going to Best Buy and buying an artificial intelligence robot off the shelf. Like, it takes time to develop.
Yeah.
Mike, honestly, Mike and everybody listening, I cannot tell you how many times I have heard, we'll just we'll get the machine, we'll get the robot to do that. As if you go to Best Buy or Staples or Office Depot and you just go and say, "Oh, I need a robot to do my intake, my transaction, my call intake." Like, you need to invest time, much like the analysis. You need to invest time in teaching the bot, the AI, what to do, to the point where it does become a savings.
But this is where it's dangerous, right? So many of us, and probably a lot of the people who listen to this podcast, work for large companies.
Yes.
With intricate technology. But what happens is, and I'll take this, I bought myself a Rocket book. And that's one of those things where you write on the book, then you take a picture, and it'll upload to, let's say, like OneDrive, but you can also OCR.
Oh.
Yeah. So for a very small fee, I got this book, and then the app, which is free, has OCR technology. Now, what do you think happens in the wrong hands with that? What do you mean what do you got to do for OCR? I just went to Best Buy, I got the Rocket book.
Mm-hmm.
I scribble stuff down. It reads it no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my writing's pretty bad. But
Mm-hmm.
if you're a half-neat writer that gets OCR'd, basically for free.
Right.
This is where these projects come from. Because
Right.
someone comes in and goes, I was at Best Buy. I got this thing. We got OCR. Why can't you just go buy that thing?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
then to
never
your point,
that easy.
Let the robot do it. Okay. It's easy. You can add that to the program. It's easy. It's like what? 2 weeks work? Shouldn't be a lot. Next thing you know, you're stuck there for the next 6 months trying to install like OCR. Yeah.
And part of the problem there, as you've described it, is there's no push. Because if that's coming from like a manager level, low level, saying, "Hey, I did this thing, and why don't we have OCR?" They would say, "Because it's not part of the program."
Right.
Rot. Like versus your sponsor who's like, "Oh man, my kid showed me this thing. It's great. We should do it. You know what? My kid showed me Twitch. We should be on Twitch."
Yeah.
Okay.
We should live stream the whole program.
We should live stream. Yeah, live stream all our work. So like, okay, but for what? Like, and then you miss all of the stuff that goes into the actual OCRing. Like it's gonna take time to get to know your writing, and then over time it'll get better at recognizing what you're writing, right? I've used a lot of speech to text programs for writing and for various things. So, I remember the old days of like in Google, the docs, it would do, speech to text, and it was not good.
No,
but the more you used it,
still not good.
It's still not good. But the more you used it, the better it became. Right. And so now by the way, I'm not endorsing any of these products, but now I use Otter, which, you can get the free version and it's like you get what you get, or you can get the paid version and then it takes you through, okay, now say this sentence. It starts to learn your speech patterns. It starts to learn, when, like, if we were to get a transcription of the show, it would know. When we did the free one, it did not distinguish between your voice and my voice, which made it unpublishable. Right now,
so that just means we have the same accent.
It means that we more or less speak the same. But now if I do that and I say speaker 1 Vince, speaker 2 Mike, it now knows who is who, right? So you're paying for those extra features. But again, that didn't come out of nowhere. It takes time to develop, and over time it gets better. So you can't just go and buy something and chase that shiny object. It doesn't work. So somebody needs to be brave and say, no, we're not going to do that. Yes, it's a cool, and I think, the way that I would do it is, give credence to the idea. Every idea has some level of value. You can say, yeah, it would be great if we had AI to do X.
Right.
But here's what that means. It means teaching it for 2 years, running 1 million transactions through it, investing a lot of time in actually teaching it what to do and how to make decisions, and then deploying it. So I think it's great, but it's not a part of, it's not a quick win. It's not going to be something that we're able to deploy because we bought something off the shelf.
Right. And I think also, do you have all the foundational things to do that?
That's the other piece of it. Yeah. And
so if you don't, you could probably add this to your program. But if you don't have those other things, now you're just doubling your work. And I think this is where programs get themselves in trouble. Because you have laid out a pretty good plan, and these extras, I think, deviate you. So I think, I think that it'd have to be a really good idea that brings a ton of value. But there shouldn't be like 8 of these.
No.
Like these should be the adding something to what you've said your scope is should be the exception. And it should have to go through a rigorous process to say yes, it gets added.
Right. But back to the original comment, right? Like does this new thing align to the strategic, does it align to our strategic vision, and does it add value?
Right.
Because if it doesn't, I mean, yeah, it still might be a great idea, but it's not part of this work.
Right.
So either it becomes part of, the business as usual work, or it becomes part of a separate, spin-off project.
Innovation, maybe your innovation
could
lab.
Be in your innovation lab. There's a million, I mean, there's not a million, but there's a lot of different ways that you could handle this. Right. So it's not to say, no, it's not part of the plan, rot, but it's not part of this piece of work.
Right. And I think you have to be protective of that piece of work.
Correct.
And, as we've talked about at some conferences, 82% of failure. Is that the number? I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it's up there.
It's about 84%.
84%. That's right. Because only 16% are successful.
Yeah.
And that's, this is a contributing factor to that large percentage of failure. Shiny objects, being persuaded to do things when maybe you should hold firm and have maybe someone else can take that on. And when you're ready for it, you can handle it in the program, or they converge. But for me, I think if you have a plan, anything new has to go through a lot of rigor.
Right.
Things shouldn't just easily flow in to add scope.
Right. Now I'm going to disappoint you, Mike, because as you were talking there, and I know we've already sort of agreed that the title of this episode is I've already got a plan, rot. But I think what we're actually talking about here, and maybe a better episode title, is how to avoid shiny object syndrome. Like, how do you avoid? I'm going to write that one down before I forget, because you better
write that down.
That is a good title. But how do you avoid constantly chasing that next shiny object? Because if you're doing that, then you're not doing the work.
You're not doing
constantly changing. Right.
Yeah. There was a lot of work that went into your business case to meet objectives, to transform your business, or to get a new line of business. And that work in the beginning always has a lot of rigor around it. It's when you're in doing it, somehow that rigor goes away, and you start chasing. And then if you're lucky enough to be able to course correct, you go down a road that now needs a lot of unwinding. And so I think these things need to go somewhere else, or you don't do them, or it has to go through a tremendous amount of rigor to be put in. And maybe something has to stop, because it's not like you're going to get 15 more people for this new thing.
Right.
So you better be sure what you're asking.
And that comes back to that idea of actually understanding the implications of this new proposal. Understand what it means, and in the bigger picture, because it's not as simple as let's buy a robot, or let's add this work, because that means budgets are not infinite. Budgets are finite, resources are finite, time is finite. So if you want to still deliver something, and you're constantly chasing your tail and chasing that shiny object, it's never going to happen.
Right.
Now, that just sparked an idea. What if the person who is constantly bringing up these shiny ideas is doing it for nefarious purposes? Perhaps they have a vested interest in this program work continuing. They
for
are
infinity.
right.
As like a new, as a thing that's just keeps continuing.
Yeah,
It's possible.
it's a way of managing your career, right? I never have to look for a new job because this program is going to continue forever. Eventually it needs to end, right? So you also need to then consider the source of what is their vested interest in this work or in this proposed new work. Do I have a situation where someone is just trying to extend timelines so that they can continue to have the level of authority that they have, or the salary, or the perks, or whatever? Or is this actually coming from a good place?
Or is it may not be someone in the program itself, but someone from a line of business that wasn't able to get it done on their own or doesn't have the budget. And then they're like, I know where we can stick this. It's innovation. It's transformational. It should go there. You should do it.
Yeah.
Which is something that happens more often than you think. It's a way to get work done outside of your business, outside of your team, but then you reap the reward. But everyone else takes the program actually takes all the risk.
Outside of your team, but outside of your budget, outside, like,
yes,
you get all of the benefit
and
without
no risk.
any of the work. Without the work, never mind the risk. Without the work, like
that's gold.
Oh, I don't like what do happen a lot. It does happen a lot. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So I mean, this stuff happens. You're going to have to deal with people, projects, stakeholders, sponsoring shinies. I think it's a mistake to go the route of the plan is locked in. Too bad. But it's also a mistake to say, yeah, keep bringing those ideas, man. This is gold.
No problem. Keep endless cash.
It in. Yeah, the truth is somewhere in the middle there. So you need to find that happy balance, and that can only be determined by your organization and what your tolerance for that type of behavior is. But I'm interested, as we always are at the conclusion of our episodes, I'm interested to hear from from you, lady and lord listener. What do you think about chasing your tail, chasing the shiny object? Are you on team shiny object, or are you on team I've got a plan rot?
That's what I want to know.
Let us know what you think. That's a good one. Let us know what you think. You can hit us up at vincentmirabelli.com or michaelmartino.ca. But I think this is another one in the bag. Mike, what do you think?
Yep. And I actually would like to know what side you fall on, because it could lead to more discussion for Vince and I.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, I think I know what side you're on. Definitely team I got a plan rot.
I got a plan. I want to deliver.
Yeah. I probably go down the middle, as I do with most things. I see the value in both, but we also come at this from different perspectives, because as a project sponsor, you are judged based on delivery, not based on how many cool ideas, right? So our views are different. Correct. Yeah. Correct. So yeah, but let's hear what you think, because I think there's more to this one that we can talk about a lot of stuff. But anyways, this has been the Business Not As Usual podcast. We will catch you in the next one.
See ya.